right. Welcome to the Dirty Mind Podcast. My name is Dirt. I'm the one talking currently. Today, what are we talking about? That's a great question. I'm going to answer that imminently. So, we're talking about my strategies for switching my brain off. And this is pretty important because my brain is constantly running. It seems like it never runs out of ideas, which I would love it to actually do, is to run out of ideas because so many of them are just so boring. I have all of these ideas like what if I went out into nature and I tried to transform a tree into an exact replica of the same tree, only it was out of cardboard, and it would be sort of like a statement on machinism and the Industrial Revolution. And it's just like, why come up with that idea? Maybe we just leave that in the no pile, right? Just don't even look at that. So there's a few different things that I try to do to quiet my brain, which is always yelling at me for various reasons. Occasionally, it will tell me to drink water, but not very much. And I kind of like that. That's a good aspect. I want more of that. I want the level of not telling me that dehydration is a thing. I want that all the time for all of the other thoughts of my brain. But there's different ways that I come close to achieving this dream, and I'm gonna go into all of these things. But first, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Old News.
I got nothing new for you.
Guess what? Commander Keen is getting another game. Commander Keen 4 Secrets of the Oracle. So this is a great example of another DOS system game that is just tremendous, and it's really pushing the boundaries for graphics and storytelling. Commander Keen 4 is going to be, it's just going to be the best. And it's coming out December 15th, 1991. So put that on your calendars. It's going to have so many more environments. The depth and the level of detail in the textures, the animations. It's come a long way. Just looking back a few years ago, you can't even tell that these were connected to the earlier entries of the Commander Keen series. It's incredible how far it's come. So be on the lookout for Commander Keen 4 Secrets of the Oracle. Coming in 91 to DOS computers. Check a look at that when it's able to be looked at. Welcome back. So, in discussing the first of my many strategies for telling my brain to hit the snooze buttons, obviously you have to consider games. There's a lot of different games that I'll try to play to quiet the brain, because they give me this avenue where I get to say, all right, I am not 100% in charge. I'm maybe 35% in charge. And if I'm doing something like I'm just standing in the middle of the expressway, then it's all on me. There's nothing else. There's no guidance system coming in. There's no one pulling the puppeteering strings. It's sort of up to me whether or not I'm going to cross the road and meet up with the chicken or not. But when I'm playing a game, well, there's a little bit of structure there, isn't there? It's all outlined. It depends on if it's a story game or if it's going to be open world or whatnot. But there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of barriers and borders, but there's still a little bit of freedom and independence within those things and such. So that, I think, gives my brain a little bit of a funnel, It says, hey, go this way. Take the powdered sugar and spread it here, not over there. You got to put it in the pan. So some of the games that help me with that, ironically so, are some of the more aggressive ones. So we're talking Battlefield, the Finals, the types of games where if I was capable of sweating, that's when I would sweat. And so these games, I think, because they force me to really be thinking on my hooves and just being instantaneous type of reactions with my thinkings. It says it sort of cuts out the middleman, if you will, and says, no, don't be thinking. You can't. You got no time. You got no time to be thinking. You just got to react. And so it becomes more instinctual, more habitual almost. And it's like when someone gets you with the cattle prod and you just start doing the jamba. Is that a dance? Zumba. No, that's copyrighted. How about the merengue? Yeah. Or tango. Any of those are great options. So you just start doing your little dance because someone sent 20 volts through your body. I don't know if 20 volts is a lot. I'm not an electrician. But you just start doing these things and you don't really think about it because you got no time to think. If you spend your time thinking all the time, guess what? You're going to be dead. You're going to be dead in 4 seconds flat. I never really understood that term. Flat? Like why does that have anything to do with it? Why does the vertical height of this thing, the pancakeism of it, have anything to do with what I was like, what the time duration was going to be? So if you say, oh, it took me 30 seconds flat, why flat? Like, is it because, like, if you were to arrange the numbers in a way that it was visually representative or physically representative, and it's not just this abstract concept of time dilation and the flow of energy and gravity having an effect on the way that we perceive the universe. Now, instead, we're going to visualize it with some Lego or marbles. Those are two very different things, but let's go with Lego because they're a little bit easier to organize and stack. So if you say 30 seconds, but is going to be like 30.167, so you got your 30, but how do you represent the 0.167? Well, you're going to have to change things a little bit. So we're going to have to represent 30 Lego or 30 seconds with not 30 Lego, probably more like 300. And then we can use 16 or maybe 1. Okay, so we're going to have to increase this a lot. So 3,000 Lego. And then with the 3,000 Lego, then you can put 167 Lego. Yeah, 3,000, 1,000 to 106. Yeah. So you got 3,000 Lego, and they're just in a random assortment. It doesn't really matter. You got a hill. Is the type where you're not going to stub your toe on it. You know, you're not going to be stepping on it at all because it's going to block you from even entering the room. Okay, this is a barrier. This is a wall. You can't miss it, really. It's the type you can see from space. So you got 3,000 Lego and then 167 different colored Lego. I want to say turquoise. You don't see that very often. So you got these turquoise, and then it's 167. So it's obviously not going to be very level. Because you got all these extras representing the 0.167 of the seconds. So you reduce that down to, if it was 30 seconds on the nose, then what would happen is it would be just 30 Lego, and it could be spread out flat, so it's a nice little carpet, a carpet of Lego, or like a mattress. That would be a comfortable mattress, would it not? I would love to lay on a mattress made of Lego as long as it was one even flat surface. So I think that's where flat comes from. Thank you for being with me as I work my way through this. You see, this is part of the reason why I need my brain to quiet down sometimes, but we're not quite done yet here with the flatness. So I think with the flat ideology, it's that you're smoothing it out. There's no extra bumps hither or thither, not early on, like a negative 0.248 or something like that. No, it's nice and even. So if you're writing it, or you visualize it on a ruler or something, you just have a line that divides it perfectly right at the other line. So it's two lines becoming one line, and it looks like all the lines have aligned. So there you go. That's why it's called flat. And also, who doesn't like pancakes? I think it all comes back to pancakes. Um, so if it takes you 4 seconds flat to die, I remembered. It takes you 4 seconds flat to die in this type of game, like we'll say Battlefield 6 or something. If you're not paying attention, then you really gotta just move. You just gotta do stuff. You can't be overthinking. You can't really be thinking at all too much because then you're distracting yourself. Something that I pick up on sometimes is when I'm watching a gamer. It doesn't matter who it is. Oftentimes they're... Sorry, I had 2 entire corn on the cobs. Literally the entire corn on the cob. I don't even know if there was a whole lot of kernels on it. It was just like just the cob. Anyway, sometimes I'll be looking at their video and I'll notice, oh, there was an enemy right there and they never saw them. And they were coming around the corner and they were running away. And it's like, oh, that would have been perfect ambush territory. Just turn, just go to the left and follow them down the dark alley and say that you got some warheads or some airheads. I wonder what's the obsession with heads. And then there's like Sour Patch Kids, and then it's like, what's up with the bodies? Why you gotta represent everything in bodies and make it seem like everyone just wants to eat body parts all the time? What's up with that? Like, make it just a little more of a, I mean, there's plenty of things that are fruit flavored and then also fruit shaped. There's plenty of cherries out there. I defy you to bring me an example of a company that makes sweet treats and does not have a cherry, right? There's always got to be a cherry visual representation somewhere in their repertoire. But, there's got to be some other things you would think, like just normal household objects that you want to be able to eat, but you can't eat on a normal, everyday situation, normal basis. And I think one of those would be like a lamp. I would love to eat a lamp. I would love to eat a chair. I would love to eat an umbrella. The problem is, most of the time, they are unflavored and they have inconsistent texture, especially when it comes to an umbrella. So if you're eating an umbrella, the handle of the umbrella, yeah, it's nice and crunchy. It's hollow, so it sort of feels like one of those candy bars that has like, it's chocolate, but like air puffed chocolate. So there's a lot of negative space on the inside, which sort of makes you feel like, okay, maybe I'm getting ripped off because a good 70% of this is just oxygen, and that is it. But it still makes for a really nice texture when you're consuming it. However, when you get to the top of the umbrella, that's when you see some unusual textures that don't really fit together. I can sort of see it working in theory, but in practice, not so much. So you got the metal bars that are just out in a boot, and they're a little bendy, and they're okay if you want something like a pretzel stick, but it doesn't crunch like a pretzel stick. And then you have the material, like the canvas of the umbrella, and that is it's getting close to taffy, but it's a little more stringy. Sorry, I just had 2 entire corn on the cobs. So you have those 2 things playing against each other, those 2 textures where you got the metal and then you got the canvas. And I am all for having this dichotomy of situations, of textures playing against each other. It's like having the rookie cop and the veteran cop. That's always nice. You got to have things that are complementary. You don't need to have everything match each other all the time. But in this situation, I think they're not complete opposites, but they're just on an opposite end of a spectrum where they don't mesh at all. So if you're going to eat an umbrella, go ahead and eat the handle, but leave the top for another use, to repurpose for something else. Like maybe turn that into a jacket, like get a couple of umbrellas and make a rain jacket or, a windbreaker or something like that. That would be my recommendation. But having some gummies that are the shape of other things that are not body parts, that's always great. That's always fantastic. I like to be able to eat things that I don't ordinarily think could be edible. Or maybe I would, like I brought up earlier, I would like to be able to eat them, but I know it's potentially dangerous or just not as delectable as one would hope or expect. So something I'm looking at currently, this very second, is I've got some sound absorbing panels in this room. Well, it's a closet, but in this closet, I got those nice textured foam bits. And for all you audiophiles out there, don't you worry. I have a few different types. It's not just the cheap foam that you get on the online retailers. And they say, oh, this is all you need. And then you put them up and it makes no difference whatsoever. No, I've got about 4 different types. I got some that have shorter ridges, and I make sure to alternate 90-degree angles as they go about, sort of a checkered pattern. And then I got some just basic foam. It doesn't have any texture. That's sort of a minimal amount. That's just to fill in some gaps. And then I got some really sharp edge, higher ridges here and there. And then we got some rock wool, some big old rock wool panels. And those, I think, are the absolute best. That's just that really seals the deal. So I got a few different ones, but all of these I could see myself consuming, especially the rock wool, which you should not because it's insulation. But my goodness, it's not exactly cotton candy type of a texture or a look to it, but it just seems so soft. It's like somewhere between cotton candy and sort of like a honey crisp, a honey bake. There's something that flour. She would bake this thing where it was sort of like a honeycomb, and it would just like explode. And there's like a baking secret to it where it'll just like overflow volcano style. And it looks like a creature from an Alien franchise, and it's just, it's like, why do I want to eat this thing that looks like a living organism that's going to take over the earth? I don't know, but that's what these foam pieces have got going on, and I want to eat that. So if there was some food that looked like that, but it was safe to eat, then bon appetit, But then again, it doesn't even need to be safe to eat because Skittles, I've had my fair share of Skittles, and they've been declared by several countries as not being food, and they are not allowed to be sold. So, whatever, just go for it. So if you're in a game like Battlefield and you're thinking too much, you're going to be dead. And there's only a couple of situations where you have a chance to think. And that's usually when you're respawning or you're picking your load out or something. But other than that, you always have that countdown. So there's not really a whole lot of freedom and flexibility to let your brain wander. So I get in this groove where I will realize many minutes or hours after I've been in the zone that I haven't really thought about anything other than what I'm doing. Or I don't even know if I have a whole lot of thoughts in general. I'm just sort of going through the motions, but in the best way possible. Now, it'll incite a little bit of anger here and there, sure, when I spawn in and immediately die from someone shooting me in the back. And then even though all 3 of my teammates are support class and they got their defib paddles, they just sort of walk past me and keep on going. But even if I have situations like that, usually they dissipate pretty quick because there's no time to dwell. You gotta just move on to the next situation. And when the mission keeps rotating or you're going out, you're trying a different one, you're trying a different game mode, there's always something new happening. So the things that pop up that could potentially slow you down and stick in your brain for a long time, they don't really stay too long. Like there's just too much new stuff coming at you to really start thinking about that. And I think that's how a lot of politicians, they sort of want the general populace to react. Is there's just all these new developments every 4.5 seconds. There's the number 4 again. And so there's just too much happening for you to dwell on anything. And so it's just like, oh, this new thing is happening. Oh, but look over there. There's that thing. Oh, you didn't see that coming, did you? Oh, but look to your right. Oh, gosh. Oh, wait, this thing is coming back up in the news again. Hey, turn around. There's that thing. Oh, look out. Just a constant sea of distractions. So you have competitive games like that have that super fast pace situation. And that sort of keeps my brain from really gaining any traction. It just makes things so slippery. It's just like putting dish soap on a slip and slide. That's what it's all about. So we're going to take a teeny tiny break to hear from today's sponsor. So I'll be right back. Hey, have you ever been eating an apple and thought this would be so much better if it was a lemon-flavored apple? Well, guess what? You are in luck because we have lemon-flavored apples now available for resale. Lemon-flavored apples are apples, but they're flavored like lemons. This is great for anyone who enjoys the texture of apples, and guess what? Everyone enjoys the texture of apples. We did our research. I researched 4 people and called it a day. And every one of those 4 people said they love the texture of apples. However, they also love the flavor of lemons. So personally, I love eating lemons directly. I will eat lemons like oranges, and they look similar texture, so why not? But not everyone likes to do that. Maybe they're a little too acidic, too citrusy, too sour, what have you. So that's why we infused these apples with all the lemon flavor you could ever want. So go to your local store and demand that they bring you a batch of lemon-flavored apples today, because they're definitely real and you can definitely buy and consume them. So go now. Don't even think about it. Don't even hesitate. Just do it. Yeah, okay, good. Get it. So good. So there's some other games that I do enjoy playing to quiet down my brain, and sometimes they fall into an open world situation like Minecraft, where I just do whatever comes to mind and just go with the flow. But sometimes I feel like there's a sort of happy middle ground between having too much freedom and not enough freedom. So a game series like Ratchet and Clank can occasionally do the trick. And in Ratchet and Clank, if you never played, most of the time the games are structured like this. You have certain zones, certain areas that are, excuse me, I just had 2 corn on the cobs. Certain areas that are mostly open for anyone to just go around at their own pace, choose their own direction that they want to go to, some branching areas. But there's not too much freedom where you can keep going for like 30 minutes and still not hit a wall. These areas are fairly small, but there's a lot of them. And that sort of gives my brain, again, a nice little border where there's a little bit of freedom, but I can't go too far. It's sort of like having a playpen in your living room it goes almost to the edge of the wall, but not quite. And you still have all the stuff you need in there. There's like a little ball pit. There's a teddy bear, but it's not a teddy bear. It's a dinosaur, but the type of dinosaur where it's like, oh, what kind is that? Is that a plesiosaurus? And it's like, no, I don't think that's a real dinosaur. It's just like a combination of 4 different ones, and then also maybe a dragon. So you got a lot of good stuff going on there, and I think it's a good balance. But in addition to games, there's some other techniques that I like to use to quiet the old brain box down. And sometimes that's rewatching a show that I've already seen many dozens of times. And this could be Avatar The Last Airbender, Bob's Burgers, MASH. Those are some of the go-to ones. And those are really great because even though I know what's going to happen, it's still enjoyable to watch it all again. And because I know what's going to happen, I'm not spending any of my brain predicting what might happen. I'm just anticipating, and anticipating doesn't require as much energy or input from your brain. So that smooths things over a little bit. And other than shows, when it comes to movies, I've actually found that slower paced movies will sometimes help. Now, this is a situation where it's counterintuitive. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think when a movie slows down the pace, it's not so boom, 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 explosion, explosion. Here's The Rock, here's Jack Black. There's not all this going on, but it takes its time. Then I feel like I don't need to try very hard to keep up. Even if it is a little more cerebral or a little more intellectual, I don't feel pressured to start dissecting everything or to try and overcompensate by thinking, oh, goodness, how are they going to get out of this situation? Oh, a Deus Ex Machina? Got it. Great. Anyway, but in a movie like, let's say, Arrival, directed by Denis Villeneuve with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, that is a type of movie, highly recommend, by the way, where it's not trying to be like any other movie. It's not like they just watched Armageddon or they just watched Jurassic Park and they're like, oh, let's do that. Except, it's an alien invasion, basically. It's an alien invasion movie, but they don't want to focus on the spectacle. They want to focus on what would actually be the real challenge. And the whole crux of this movie is, how do you communicate with a brand new intelligent race from another planet? Well, you got to start at the bare bones. You can't just ask a question, say, what's your favorite color? You can't do that because they don't know the structure of sentences. They don't know what any of those words mean. They may not even have any idea of what they should be thinking of opinion-wise. Maybe they don't even think that far ahead. Maybe they just act on instinct alone. And even though you would think my brain would be going crazy watching a movie like this, it doesn't, and I don't know exactly why, but when I'm watching a movie like Arrival or a slower movie, like maybe The Prestige, that's a little bit faster, but something where I sort of allow the main characters to do the heavy lifting for me. I think it helps to have smart peoples, the smart characters. They figure it out. And I trust them. I trust them to be like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you do the math. You do the research. And I'll just wait. I'll sit back and I'll let you come to me with all of the results. And when it's nice and slow, then I get to think about really nothing, which is ideal. We just sort of go along for the ride. And I'm not feeling pressured, and I just sort of zone out. But I zone out while focusing intently. Does that make any sense? Don't answer that question. So, in addition to all of these options, there's sleep. Sleep is pretty helpful for quieting the brain, although occasionally, there will be even more brain activity. I wish I could do a study for free where I could figure out how much my brain is actually firing those neurons and all that while I'm in snooze town. But occasionally, I will access some lucid dreaming. And that's a good time, by the way. If anyone else is able to do that, they're probably able to back me up on that. When you're able to lucid dream, it's it seems like it's sort of the best of both worlds where your body is able to relax, but your mind is still able to do some imaginings. And there was one a couple weeks ago that I had where I was able to, this is sort of a standard, is flying, right? Everyone wants to fly until you actually fly in real life and you're like, oh, this takes so much energy and gasoline. But when you fly in a dream, and it's a lucid dream, oftentimes it's difficult because you don't actually know how to fly in real life. So how could you do it in a dream, right? Well, I had this strategy where it was sort of a leap of faith situation where I would go onto my tummy and it's like I'm sliding in the mud, but I'm sliding in the air. And then I would just lift my chin and then I would gain some altitude and then come back down. And I felt like the more I let go, the more faith I had, the more trust I had in the wind, then the better it served me. And sometimes I have this problem. I'm sure a lot of other lucid dreamers have this problem as well. The more I understand that it's a lucid dream, the more I understand that I'm dreaming, the more control I try to have over the situation and what I'm doing, the harder it is to stay in the dream the more I wake up, And I don't want that. I want to stay in the dream. I don't want to wake up and realize that my face is buried into the wrong side of the mattress and it's just filled with dog hair, which on its own, not that bad. But when it's going directly into my nostrils, it's not always ideal. So I want to stay in the dream. And when I'm focusing sometimes too much, then it has the opposite effect. I get pulled away. So I have to relax. I have to let go and just sort of see what happens. And that's why some of the dreams are actually beneficial in giving me a break, even though I'm very aware that I'm dreaming. So I think the last one that I wanted to mention is there's a whole lot of therapeutic benefit to making music. But for me personally, if I'm making music and it's for something specific, then it can be a little more daunting. So if I'm making music, but there's no intended purpose behind it, like I'm not making this for a specific video or I'm not making this for someone else, then I get to just let the cards fall where they may. Is that the saying? Something like that. Let the chocolate chips fall into the batter however they end up falling into the batter. I think that's the phrase. It's gotta be. So if I'm making music and I don't even know what the genre is going to be, that ends up being much more relaxing. It ends up being a situation where I just I go with it. And if I'm using my MIDI keyboard or playing an instrument like the bongo drums, then I just I do a little something. I don't think too hard about it. And then I just respond. It's just wherever I start at, wherever it happened to begin, I just respond to that. And it's like having a conversation where you're not using words. And it just ends up being an exercise in reaction. And when you get to a point where you're reacting to sounds without using words and just using rhythm, oh my goodness, you can enter this zone where things just sort of happen, time just sort of whiffs on by, and it's beautiful, it's ethereal, I love it. However, it is tough to get there because it's like meditating. If you're a very good reader, then every time you're reading, you're meditating, because what is reading other than borrowing someone else's imagination? And that's really tough because it means suspending your own imagination. And that's hard for me because I like to have control over my imagination, my thoughts, my brain movements and such. But any type of situation like that does feel like meditation. Like if you're a Buddhist, then oh goodness, you got a leg up on everyone else. But it's really difficult because the brain is not like other muscles. You can't just do the same exercise a bunch of times and then it just eventually gets a lot better. Sometimes it's just way more nuanced than that. There's more connections in the human brain than there are sand droplets in the sea. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's time for today's lucky color. Today's lucky color is rust. B7410E, classic rust. It's beautiful. Again, the hex code is B7410E. It's sort of a combination, sort of like if you saw rust on a car and then you just blurred the image, this would be the general color of the rust. There's a lot of variation in rust when you see it out in the wild, in metals and oxidized, anything all out and over, up and all around and over and up and under and over there. But, even though you got those different colors, this is sort of a generalization, just a recap on what the vibe is of rust overall. I think it's fairly accurate. It's not perfectly accurate. There's probably some variations of the rust color that you would see. It depends on what kind of color swatch you're going for. I'm sure there's like a whole committee, like subcommittees and different committees in different nations where they compete and they sort of debate, like, no, rust should be this color. It's like, no, rust should be this color. It's like, no, rust should be purple. It's like, shut up, Kevin. But this is a nice color, and you're going to see it out in nature, but not on nature, just like near nature. So look out for that. So before I let you go, I just want to let you in on a secret. I never hated broccoli. Not once. I've never hated broccoli. I always liked broccoli. I feel like as soon as I dropped in the mud, I wanted some broccoli. And not because it's good for me. I could not care any less about the nutritional value. I just want the broccoli. It's good. I like it. Give me some onion powder, some garlic powder, some salt and pepper. Let me steam it up and also pan fry it. Have a little bit of a crisp to it. Al dente almost. Yeah, give me some broccoli. I'm glad I got that off my chest. So I hope this helped someone out there, but I doubt it. Thank you for being here, and I love you so much. Have a good